Take you now to KZN. Supporters of former President Jacob Zuma have been converging at his residence since his sentencing to 15 months this week. We now cross live to our colleagues Simphiwe, Makhanya and Ayanda, who are outside of the home. Simphiwe, what's the latest?
Ezra, good morning to you and good morning to the viewers as well at home. Well, the situation here outside the former President Jacob Zuma's home is quiet. But of course, yesterday we saw quite a number of people making their way outside, coming here to show their support for the former president, as he's expected to hand himself over to law enforcement authorities in this weekend. And of course, Desiree, I'm not alone. I'm with my colleague Ayanda Mhlongo, who has been monitoring the developments since the news broke of his imminent arrest. And thank you very much for your time. I suppose this is a very crucial time in the history of South Africa as a whole, Ayanda. How is the former president going to actually address this issue of him having to hand himself over to law enforcement authorities, judging by what he has been saying in the past few days and also by what his supporters have been saying?
Well, simply in terms of the way forward, I think we're all waiting to find out what is going to be the former president's next move. He's certainly been keeping his cards close to his chest. All we've been able to ascertain from the family and through the statement that was issued by the Jacob Zuma Foundation was that currently they're still studying the judgment. Of course, they've expressed their outrage, their disappointment at the decision by the Constitutional Court. So it's a waiting game, basically, at the moment. Is a family, aside from the social media post by his daughter saying that they are ready to escort her father to the nearest police station, and of course adding the fact that given the choice that he has to either serve his time in Johannesburg or here in Nkandla, they are going to choose for him to serve his time closer to home. Other family members, of course, are saying that is not going to happen. They are going to ensure that no one comes to arrest the former president. So in as far as what is going to happen over the next couple of days, he has until Sunday to hand himself over to the authorities, as you said, failing which then the order is that the Minister of Police and the National Police Commissioner will then have to effect that arrest. So a waiting game, and I think also from supporters who came out here yesterday, whether or not the action that they started, and they were saying that this is a start. What we saw yesterday, the scores of people that had gathered outside his home, they were saying this is a sign of things to come. A lot of mass action that is planned today across the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
And also a lot of people at this point also want to know, where is the former president?
The former president, I'll quote what his son said, is a South African and he is in South Africa, but he is not at home. He's still not home. We were anticipating his arrival yesterday, but from what the last conversation that I had with his son, Edward Zuma, he said his father would be making his way home by the weekend. So again, today, Simphiwe, it's going to be a waiting game for us to see whether or not he does arrive home. The supporters that come out here yesterday knew that he wasn't home, but regardless of the fact, they said that it was important for them to come out and start to show that there are many South Africans, according to what they're saying, that are behind the former president.
And in terms of what we can expect later on today as the day unfolds, what are we hearing on the ground? On
the ground, again, we are expecting supporters of the former president to once again make their way outside his home today. But of course, what we have also been told, due to the restrictions in certain areas, certain provinces like Gauteng, there were plans for many people or his supporters that are based in Gauteng to make their way to KwaZulu-Natal. We are told what has happened at the moment, or what they're planning, is that people are going to congregate and hold protests in the areas in which they are. Today, there's a plan of mass action supposed to take place in the city of Durban, in areas like Richards Bay as well, to the north of the province. We understand that they're focusing on the business hubs, that they want a complete shutdown of those areas. But as I said, Simphiwe, it's going to be a waiting game. It is also interesting to say, Simphiwe, that the numbers seem to be dwindling. In the years back, when the former former president was facing legal challenges when he was appearing particularly for this corruption case. The numbers we've seen over the years are not as much. And so again, I mean, if you look at the numbers of people that we saw yesterday compared to the numbers, for example, that we've seen in Pietermaritzburg, it could possibly be due to the level, the government's regulations that people are not allowed to travel. But he enjoys a lot of support in KwaZulu-Natal, and you would expect that a lot more people would come out. And interestingly as well, we are in Nkandla, but a lot of the people that came out here yesterday were coming from Durban and other areas. Not a lot of support here at home in Nkandla.
All right, Ayanda, thank you very much. Well, we will continue, Desiree, to be here on the ground and giving you regular updates with regards to the situation. And as Ayanda said before, it is all up to the former president now as to the next course of action, because we know that he has until Sunday to hand himself over to law enforcement authorities. Desiree?
Simphiwe, just relating to the former president having until Sunday to hand himself over, I just want to ask you a question, and I wonder if both you and Ayanda can respond to that. Taking that deadline into consideration, what do we know about a supposed meeting that the African National Congress top brass wants to have with the former president over this weekend to discuss the Concord ruling that sentenced him to 15 months in prison?
Well, Desiree, we do know, of course, that that crucial NEC meeting is going to be taking place this weekend, but it will basically be discussing this whole issue. But the question that perhaps one may ask is, to what extent is it going to have an impact on this court judgment that has already been given? And of course, the answer to that question is it's not going to change much. The Constitutional Court has made its ruling, and we expect the former president to abide by that ruling, failing which, of course, law enforcement authorities will then have to come in and execute the instruction of the Constitutional Court, Desiree.
Not only the fact that they can't turn it around, but it's interesting that at a time when he's presumably making arrangements to go hand himself over, how does he even start to prepare for such a meeting?
It's going to be a very crucial meeting. Let me just perhaps, Desiree, bring in my colleague, Ayanda. Ayanda, Desiree is talking about the NEC meeting, which is expected to take place this weekend, discussing, of course, the outcome or the judgment of the Concord. What do you make of what is perhaps going to come out of that meeting?
As you're saying, Simphiwe, it's going to be a difficult one for the leaders of the ANC in terms of how they're going to move forward with this. But apart from the fact that it looks like they have very little choice in terms of what they can do, the court order stands and the former president is going to have to hand himself over to the authorities. But I think above that, it's going to try and manage now the situation within the ANC. So particularly this matter has been a thorn in the side of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, the leaders of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, and there were several attempts before this court decision by the secretary of the ANC, Mdumiseni Ntuli, together with the chairperson, who had met with the former president on several times in an effort to try and encourage him to appear before the commission, so to avert the divisions within the ANC in this province, particularly in this province. As I said, the ANC, the former president, enjoys a lot of support, and already the divide is there. Already a lot of members of the ANC are putting the blame or saying that this is part of a political campaign by his political adversaries to see him go to prison. And so what they need to try and manage now is the unity amongst members of the ANC, and I think that is going to be the biggest task for the leaders. This is a difficult one for the ANC in this province. They were saying to us that they were studying the judgment and should by now have issued their statement in terms of what they're going to do, what is the way forward. This NEC ANC meeting is possibly going to give them guidance in terms of how they're going to manage the situation. It also comes at a time for the ANC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Simphiwe, where the party is preparing for the regional conferences, which is also a critical matter, knowing the divisions and knowing the past, the history and the tensions that have been that come out ahead of conferences. And so really, really difficult. And I think it could not have happened at a worse time for the ANC in the province, regional conferences, and then the preparations to the elections, if indeed they will go ahead in October as previously announced. So NEC meeting is going to have to give guidance. How are they going to manage the situation? How are they going to try and unite the members of the ANC? Looks like it's going to be a difficult one. Yesterday, the posters that the people were waving saying Cyril Ramaphosa must fall. An indication that the ANC is going to be deeply, deeply divided by what has happened.
Certainly, Ayanda. Just behind you, I see that former President Jacob Zuma's son is actually addressing some people who are outside. That's Edward Zuma. He's been very vocal over the past few days, of course, leading up to the Concord judgment which was delivered, Desiree. But of course, Desiree, as Ayanda said, it's going to be crucial for the former president himself now to be in a position to know how to respond to this. Of course, he issued a statement which was scathing, criticizing the judiciary and saying that his rights were violated. But that decision by the Concord, unfortunately, for him, it stands and there's nothing that he can do. The question now is, will he abide by that Concord ruling, Desiree?
Simphiwe, thank you so much to you and Ayanda for bringing us up to speed. But we'll continue to follow developments there. And Ayanda was talking about the dwindling numbers of support. And of course, we don't really know what this indicates, if it's a reduction in support for the former president or if it's affected by the sharp increase in the number of deaths as a result of COVID-19 and, of course, legislation that's currently in play.